Dude, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show. Shout out to TJR for connecting us. And look, Peter, I don't
So
know.
who are you again?
Okay, so I was just about to I was just about to say, I am ThreadGuy, Mr. Peter, and I was gonna say,
No, but what's your actual what do you go by? What do people call you?
Michael. Well, they call me ThreadGuy on
Michael.
Twitter. My name is Michael.
All right, but so you want me to, but I call, but yeah, so Michael.
Yeah, you could do whatever you prefer, but Michael's cool with me.
All right,
Can I, Peter? Is Peter? What do you prefer?
Peter, I guess.
Okay. Well, look,
I mean, I guess you could call me Mr. Schiff because you're so young, but you can call me
Mr. Schiff. Is that Professor
you can
Schiff?
call me
Maybe.
Peter. You can call me Peter.
I was gonna open with Pete, but I wasn't sure how that was gonna fly. But dude, welcome to the show. I was gonna open by assuming you aren't super familiar with me, and I'm gonna tell you that this
I'm not.
This show that we run, this is a crypto show. We come here, we talk about crypto, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about on-chain, and
you just waste all your time talking crypto.
And what I'm gonna say, Peter, is as much as I would love to come and fight with you about Bitcoin, which seems to be a thing that you like to do often, you tweet about it a lot. I know deep down you have a soft spot in your heart for Bitcoin. This is sort of your victory lap that's happening right now. And we don't spend that much time talking about gold, and we definitely don't spend a ton of time talking about this impending financial crisis that you are warning about.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have you on the stream.
All right. Well, let's go.
Cool.
Let's go. Let's get this done.
This is where I want to start. Is I was doing a bunch of research on you the last couple of days, and I'm watching all of these old YouTube clips, and I'm watching you pretty much forecast and hit every major trade over the last couple of decades. I'm watching you in 2006, 2007 on Fox, CNBC, warning about an impending financial crisis, and they're laughing at you. I watched this interview you did on CNBC. I think gold was $1,200, and you're in this like screaming match. They're like, Peter, when are you gonna admit that you're wrong? And you're like, no, 5K, gold's going to 5K. It's fucking going to 5K. They're cutting you. I mean, they're audibly laughing at you, and it's funny to see how it aged. And sort of on the back end of that to start, what is it that you think the crypto crowd specifically has gotten wrong about gold?
Well, I mean, they've gotten a lot wrong about gold, but I think a lot of it has to do with their justification of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin doesn't actually have any intrinsic value. Nobody can do anything with a Bitcoin, right? I mean, you can't make anything out of it. If you have Bitcoin and you can't do anything with it. I mean, you can give it to somebody else, but they can't do anything with it either. They can just give it to somebody else. And so they assume that gold is the same way, that gold is just some kind of worthless rock that doesn't really have any use, and that it has value because we perceive that it has value. And therefore, well, if gold can be worthless and have value, then why can't Bitcoin? But what they miss is that gold does have value. It has a lot of value. That's why gold worked as money, was because it was such a valuable commodity, that it was so highly sought after. But what made it work as money better than other valuable commodities were the properties that Bitcoin copied. Right? So Bitcoin copied gold's fungibility, its durability, its divisibility, its portability, right? All the things that made gold better money than cattle, or all sorts of commodities that were used. So Bitcoin did a good job of copying all that. But what it doesn't have is the basic value of gold, the precious metal. And without that, nothing else really matters, right? If gold didn't have any value, the fact that you can divide it wouldn't matter. I mean, you'd be dividing nothing. But because gold is something, it's something very valuable. It is the most useful metal on the periodic table. And the only reason that gold isn't used a lot more frequently is because it's so expensive. And it's very expensive because it's very scarce. But gold is used where other substitutes are not going to work. And so gold is used in a lot of things. Obviously, the most obvious is jewelry. And of course, you know, you can make jewelry out of other metals, but a lot of people like to have gold jewelry. And that's the biggest use. But, you know, it's used in consumer electronics, it's used in aerospace and medicine and dentistry. And, you know, there are a lot of, you know, uses for gold. But another use for gold is money, because gold can be a store of value, because gold, unlike a lot of other commodities, doesn't decay. And so if you store gold, it's not losing any of its properties over time. You know, if you had a ship that went down in the ocean 500 years ago, if you can salvage that ship and there was a treasure chest, that might be the only thing that's left is the gold coins. And they'll look exactly the way they looked 500 years ago when the ship was sunk. And so all that value is preserved. You know, and that's why gold is a store of value, is because the value of gold can be stored over time, and the gold can be used in the future by whoever needs it. But nobody needs Bitcoin in the present, so nobody's going to need it in the future. I mean, it can't be a store of value if it doesn't have any value to store. I understand it has a lot of very interesting properties, but then so do a lot of other cryptos. I mean, you talk about all kinds of tokens. I mean, Bitcoin isn't the only crypto. There's thousands or tens of thousands of these things out there. And, you know, and so they all have very interesting properties about them, but none of them have any real value. And the fact that there's so many of them and there's no limit to how many can be created, I just don't see how there's any even scarcity in these things. But, you know, it's been a big bubble. People that bought Bitcoin and other tokens when I didn't early on, right, when I first learned about it, other people have gotten incredibly wealthy because they got in on this thing early and have been able to cash out. But those gains are going to come at the expense of the people who have been buying in over the last several years, that have enabled the people who got in early to cash out rich. They're going to end up being the bag holders. That's how the dynamic works. The people that get in early and get out make a lot of money, and all of those profits come at the expense of the losses by a much greater population of people who get in late and never get out, or get out with a small fraction of what they put in. And that's what I think is coming, you know, in crypto.
Okay. I think, you know, you describe a lot of the positive characteristics of Bitcoin. I think deep down you actually relate with Bitcoin a lot. But I do want to ask you this question, and then I want to get into some of the sort of the doomer thesis stuff. Same question on the contrary is, what do you think you got wrong about Bitcoin in 2017-ish, when you were posting that it's going to go to zero and then it's now gotten into where it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, I still think it is eventually going to zero, so I don't think I got that wrong. What I did get wrong was underestimating the gullibility of the public to buy it, or maybe the marketing savvy of those who were promoting it. I mean, I do concede that people that got into Bitcoin and marketed it and promoted it did a great job of selling the story and getting people to buy what they wanted to get rid of, right? That was the key to Bitcoin, is some people got in early. I guess you call them the OGs or the whales. And they had a bunch of Bitcoin, and they developed a market out of nothing. They got people to want to buy Bitcoin and bid up the price so they could sell it. You know, it's just a gigantic pump and dump. And I think a lot of the dumping has been going on over the last several years. And I think particularly after the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs, and then after the election of Donald Trump, and I think, you know, the crypto industry really helped put Trump in office for the specific purpose of pumping up Bitcoin and crypto, so they would be able to cash out. And a lot of people have been able to cash out a lot of profits since Trump's been elected. And that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin really isn't going anywhere. Yeah, it had the original run up above 100,000, but since then it's really been going sideways. And if you measure it in terms of gold, it's been going way down. I mean, Bitcoin's off about 30% since its peak priced in gold, you know, priced in real money. And, it's still down, but, they got up to 126 and now it's like 108, so it's, in a decent correction in dollars. But it's in a pretty big bear market in gold.
So I will say that even since the interviews I watched of yours and the old days, you were very consistent in pricing things denominated against gold, which I will give you credit for. But okay, look, we spend a lot of time talking about Bitcoin on the stream. We don't spend a lot of time talking about gold on the stream, and that's kind of where I want to focus right now. Can you set the stage for my audience and especially the younger viewers on why gold has had its best performing year to date since I believe 1979, and what exactly is happening right now to fuel that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, too, and if you have an audience that has a lot of crypto, my advice would be to buy some gold and buy some silver. I have a company. We probably should have used the other backdrop, but for
drop the
audience,
ref link. Show the ref link.
But Schiff Gold, right? Go to schiffgold.com, and we actually make it very easy to check out and use Bitcoin as a payment means because we work with BitPay, and they make it easy to convert your Bitcoin at point of sale to the dollars that you would need to buy some gold or silver. But the reason I think that gold is having its best year since the 1970s is because I think we're going through a period that's similar to the 1970s. Not just that we have stagflation, which we do, but I think we are at the early stages of a major reset of the global monetary order. That's what happened in the 1970s when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. Because up until 1971, the dollar was as good as gold. It was not only backed by gold, but redeemable in gold. And so the world's monetary system was really based on gold, even though it was based on the dollar, but the dollar was gold. So instead of, the Bank of France having a bunch of gold, of course it had gold too, but it had dollars, but those dollars counted as gold because you could take your dollars and pick up your gold whenever you wanted. They were like a claim check for gold. And so when we defaulted, that really changed the order because now foreign central banks had just our paper as a reserve asset. They didn't have our gold. We told them you can't have the gold. It's ours. You can't have it, right? Yeah. We basically like defaulted on our IOUs. And so that was a major change. And you saw a major devaluation of the dollar. So the dollar lost about 2/3 of its value against other currencies, but it lost a lot more than that relative to gold because gold went from $35 in the late 60s to $850 by 1980. But all prices went way up. I mean, oil prices were $3 a barrel. They went to 40. But It wasn't really that oil went up. It was that the dollar went down. We were villainizing the OPEC countries for, jacking up oil prices. But we were the villains because we tried to pay them in paper instead of gold. And they basically said, well, if you're just going to pay paper, well, then we need a lot more of it. If you're not going to pay us gold for our oil, if you're just going to give us a piece of paper, well, we need more, right? Because the dollar wasn't worth as much when it wasn't backed by gold. So it was a big change. And I think what's happening now is the next phase where the world now goes off the dollar standard. They should have went off it in the 70s. They didn't. They kept it. They devalued the dollar, but they kept using it, right? So they didn't, we were down, but we weren't out. But now I think the world has had enough with our budget deficits and our trade deficits and our sanctions and our tariffs and all the things that we're doing. I think the world is, walking away. And what's been happening over the last couple of years is central banks have been quietly divesting of dollars and replacing dollars with gold. And I think what the world is doing is going back to using gold as the primary reserve asset. I mean, not necessarily a gold standard. I don't think, the euro is going to be a convertible currency into gold, but I think currencies, central banks will hold primarily gold, not US dollars, right? and not euros or not pounds. I think gold will be the main asset that central banks hold to maintain the value of their currency. And so this is a major change, mainly for the United States. It's not as big a deal for everybody else, but for the U.S., it is a huge game changer because it means that we can't keep living beyond our means anymore. We can't keep printing money and then using it to buy stuff we didn't produce and borrow what we didn't save. So it means that the cost of living is going to go up dramatically in the U.S. The cost of borrowing money is going to go up a lot. And asset prices are going to come down, certainly in real terms. What happens in nominal terms, it's hard to say. But in real terms, priced in gold, we're going to continue to see a major decline in the value of U.S. stocks, of U.S. real estate. And that's been going on. Since 1999, the Dow Jones, despite going up fourfold in dollars, is down better than 70% in gold. And those are real dollars. So assets are losing value, but that's going to continue and accelerate as the world really officially moves off the dollar standard back to the gold standard.
Okay, so to sort of piggyback off of this, I think the biggest topic I want to cover with you, Peter, is sort of this prediction for this impending financial crisis. And I was watching, you were on Fox News, I don't know, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and you were basically giving this thesis on this impending financial crash that I'm paraphrasing, but will make 2008 pale in comparison. And now I
might have said a Sunday school picnic or something like that.
I think something like that, Peter. I'll tell you what, I was 6 in 2008. So I wasn't even conscious as to what was going on.
6?
I think a lot of my audience is in a similar spot where.
So you're the same age as my older son.
Okay, who I've been told by the chat is a Bitcoin maxi, or at one time was.
No, he was. He was a Bitcoin maxi kind of at one point. Yes.
We could come back to that at a later time. But my real question for you is like, what does that mean? How does it happen? What does it look like? What are the signs that it's coming? And I guess we'll get to what do we do after, but what does making 2008 look like a Sunday picnic in comparison, literally and practically mean?
Well, so 2008 was a debt crisis that really started in the mortgage market and that then expanded to the counterparties, who held the mortgages and insured the mortgages. But the U.S. government was able to provide bailouts and stimulus, which really made the crisis at that time a lot less dramatic than it otherwise would have been, right? Had we not had the bailouts, it would have been a lot worse. Now, that would have been the correct thing to have done, right? For the long run, we would be in better shape today had we taken more pain back in 2008. But we kicked the can down the road by doing the bailouts. But the crisis that's coming is one from which there cannot be a government bailout. And that's because I'm not predicting a crisis in, mortgages or subprime mortgages, but in U.S. Treasury bonds, right? It is a sovereign debt crisis. So it's not that people lose confidence in the ability of some, over-leveraged homeowner ability to pay back their adjustable rate mortgage or whatever. It's about the world losing confidence in the U.S. government's ability to pay back its sovereign debt. And I'm not talking about an outright default, which is still, certainly a possibility. And in fact, default is better than what I think is going to happen. But it's not so much that people are going to be worried that we're going to default, although they should worry about that. They're more going to be worried about what the dollar is going to be worth when they get paid back. And so if it looks like the only way we can pay our debts is by printing money, and it certainly looks like that. I mean, if you look at what Donald Trump is saying, we need to slash interest rates, even though inflation is rising. What does that mean, right? We're going to create inflation. We want low interest rates, even though those low interest rates won't compensate lenders for what they're losing to inflation or a decline in the value of the dollar. There's going to be a run on treasuries. People, the world is not going to want to buy treasuries. The world is not going to want to own U.S. dollars. And so it's a sovereign debt and a currency crisis, which is a financial crisis, but it's a financial crisis on a whole another level, because it's the risk-free asset that is all of a sudden blowing up, right? And that has great implications all across credit markets. But if people don't want dollars and they don't want treasuries, then the U.S. government can't bail anybody out. The Fed can't bail anybody out, because the reason the government was able to bail out in 2008, because the Fed was able to substitute dollars or treasuries for bad mortgages, right? That was all the TARP program. And the U.S. government was going to take on all the bad debt and replace it with its own debt, which was, much better, higher quality. People had confidence in treasury bonds. They're losing confidence in them now. So if we have, a dollar crisis and the dollar's tanking and inflation is exploding, what can the government do? Nothing. They can't print more money and hand it out like they did in 2008, because that'll just fuel the inflation fire. That'll make the dollar fall faster. That'll make long-term interest rates rise even higher. So we're in a situation where nothing that they've used in the past will work. And now they're really caught between a rock and a hard place, because the only real solution is the one that they've resisted all of these decades. And they resisted it because it's too painful. But because we resisted it for so long, it's going to be much more painful to deal with it now or in the near future than it would have been had we dealt with it in the past.
So you can't bail out when the subject of the bailout is what nobody wants. Can you explain, okay, today's October 22nd, 2025. Let's fast forward a year into the future. Mm-hmm. What is practically happening when this starts to go? What does it look like? What is happening? What is the first sign that things have broken?
Well, I think what's happening with gold, which almost hit 4,400 last week before a sharp correction back down near 4,000, but you're still talking, $4,000 gold. It's double what it was 2 years ago. But, just backtrack a bit. When we got to a point in 1980, right, where the world was getting rid of the dollar, they were losing confidence in the U.S., what did we do? What did Paul Volcker do to try to reinstill some confidence? He let interest rates go up to 20% short-term rates.
Whoa.
And so we told people, okay, you don't want to hold the dollar. We'll pay you 20% interest to hold our dollars, right? And now it's like, whoa, okay, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal. You're going to give me 20%, right? The highest inflation ever got was really like 10, 11%, 12%. So 20% was a pretty good return, right? And at the same time, Ronald Reagan came in with some major reforms and slashing taxes to have more economic growth, and, government's the problem, capitalism is a solution. So really changed the dynamic that existed, under the, the Nixon, Ford years and the Johnson and the Kennedy era. These were all big government guys, Rockefeller, even the Republicans were big government, Keynesian, Rockefeller Republicans. Ronald Reagan was, a whole new Barry Goldwater, conservative, cut government, and between Ronald Reagan and Paul Volcker, they were able to reinstill the confidence that had been lost in the dollar, right? But we don't have those tools. First of all, Trump is nothing like Ronald Reagan, but whoever is going to replace Powell, and including Powell, is nothing like Paul Volcker. But even if Paul Volcker was here now, he couldn't do what Paul Volcker did then, because we no longer have the ability to pay our creditors a high enough rate of interest to stop the bleeding in the dollar because of how much debt we have now. I mean, back in 1980, the national debt wasn't even 1 trillion. Now it's 38 trillion. Plus, the vast majority of the national debt was financed with long-term bonds. So even though interest rates went up to 20%, it didn't affect, most of the budget because that was locked in at much lower rates and didn't mature for 10, 20, 30 years. So it wasn't a big deal. But today, we have 1/3 of the national debt that matures in 1 year. And the whole average maturity on the entire 38 trillion maybe is 4 or 5 years. I forget exactly, but it's very short term. So if interest rates went up even to 10%, before too long, we would be paying 4 trillion in interest on the national debt, which is impossible because we probably wouldn't even collect 4 trillion in taxes because we only collect about 5 trillion now. But we would be in such a massive recession if short-term interest rates went to 10%, there'd be so many bankruptcies and unemployment would be so high. The budget deficit would explode. Tax revenues would tank. So look, it's impossible. Like, we can't fight inflation anymore because we die from the cure, right? That kills us. We can't raise interest rates. So all we end up doing is dying by inflation then because we can't cure inflation. So we die by inflation. And so that's where, we have the risk of, hyperinflation or, currency crisis because we don't have the ability. Now, what we could do to avoid the worst case scenario is default. That's what, what the U.S. government could do is say, look, we borrowed $40 trillion. We can't afford to pay it back, so we're not going to do it. Maybe we can give everybody 25 cents on the dollar. Maybe we could afford that, but we can't afford to make everybody whole, and we need much higher interest rates. And so that's one of the reasons that we have to, restructure the debt because we need higher interest rates. Interest rates have been too low for decades. That's the problem. Now the Fed wants to lower them more. Trump wants lower interest rates. We need higher interest rates. Trump is upset that we don't have manufacturing, that we have these big trade deficits. Well, the only way to cure that is higher interest rates. That way we'll stop spending and start saving, and then we could use the savings to build factories. But if we don't save money, we're not going to build factories, and we're going to have to import the stuff that foreigners produce in their factories. But the only reason we've been able to do that is because they wanted our dollars, because the dollar was the reserve currency. But once the dollar loses that status, then the world's not going to sell us their stuff for our paper. We're going to have to start making stuff again, which, we can't do because we don't have the ability to do it anymore. We don't have the factories. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the supply chains. We don't have the trained workers. We don't have any of that stuff. We did, decades ago, but it's gone now.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, just to double down on if you are correct about this thesis, like, what do we do? And like, look, yourself and I, we're in different spots, right? You're kind of like our economics unk. You've been extremely successful, been on Rogan 100 times. You were right about gold. We're in like different spots in our financial standing, I'm sure, and our career. Like, what are you telling the younger, maybe middle-class generation? Like, what do you do? Are you going to walk to the grocery store and milk's going to be, $100 a gallon? Like, what does it look like if you are correct? And what are you suggesting that people do? Is it just buy gold?
You're in a much better spot than I am because you're young, right? You have your youth, which is probably your greatest asset. It's also a liability too, because you make a lot of mistakes when you're young. Not that you don't make mistakes when you're old, but the beauty of making mistakes when you're young is you have plenty of time to recover and plenty of time to benefit from what you learn by making those mistakes, right? And I think one of the big mistakes that the young people are making is putting a lot of money in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And the good news is when you lose all your money, you'll learn a valuable lesson, and you're going to have lots of time to incorporate that lesson into your later years and your life and everything that you do. And you'll have a lot of time to make back the money that you lose, right? The problem is going to be for people my age who put a lot of money into crypto and who won't have the time to earn it back. That's going to be a big deal for those people. But I forget what was the question you asked me?
To be fair, they haven't been wrong about Bitcoin yet. But honestly, it wasn't a Bitcoin. It wasn't a Bitcoin
They've been
question.
wrong about Bitcoin. See, being right about Bitcoin and making money in Bitcoin are two separate things, right? Yeah, I can see
Well,
the
how do you
price of
reckon?
Bitcoin. Well, the price of Bitcoin has gone up, right? It's gone up
Correct.
a lot, right? But let's say at the end of the day, Bitcoin collapses and it does go to zero, right? So that means, look, yes, I was right, right? It was a big Ponzi, a big pyramid. But yes, I could have made a lot of money, right? If I had got in and got out. And so people can buy Bitcoin and be totally wrong about its actual value and what it's going to be worth in the future, but they can make money as long as other people are also wrong and buy it at a higher price and they get out. But, a lot of people are not going to get out. And let's say somebody bought Bitcoin at $5,000 and now they're, 20x their money, right? And look, I was right. All right, well, what if Bitcoin crashes and it's, 1,000 and now you're down 80%? Were you right? I mean, on paper you had a lot of profits, but you didn't take them. And then the market collapsed and you never got out and all those paper profits are gone. So I think I've been right about Bitcoin ultimately failing and not living up to the hype.
No,
But
you haven't been right about Bitcoin.
no,
Come
I have
on,
been
Peter.
right about that.
Stop.
I've been
no.
wrong. I've been wrong about not buying it and taking advantage
Correct. Okay.
of the mania. That's, so that's the, I obviously could have bought Bitcoin
Yes.
at a very low price and I could have sold it, anywhere along the way and I could have made a lot of money. Now, the thing is, I've made more money not buying Bitcoin over the last 3 or 4 years and this year than I've made more money in my other investments. But yes, had I bought Bitcoin when I first heard about it, or even within a few years of first hearing about it, I would have made more money in Bitcoin than anything I've done. But I didn't do that, right? I could have done that. Obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, I should have done it. But I think most people are going to end up losing money in Bitcoin. Some people are going to make a lot of money. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. But I think more people will lose money than make money. And I think the people who are buying it now are going to lose a lot of money.
Okay.
Well,
this is what I want. This is what I'll say, and I'm going to bring it back. If being wrong on Bitcoin is like 1,000x, 100,000x in the last 10 years, I want to be wrong, Peter Schiff. But here's what I really want to know is.
Well, I doubt it's going to go up 1,000x from here. I mean, it's probably not even going to go up 10x from here. For all we know, I mean,
you have been saying it for a while though that it's not going up from here. To be fair, but here's the thing, Peter. I honestly brought you here to glaze you because this is you want to talk about Bitcoin. I don't even want to talk about Bitcoin. This is your like career victory lap right now on the gold front.
Not really. I think gold's going a lot higher than this. So I'm not like taking a victory lap yet. I don't think we're near the end of this game. Yeah, gold's gone up to 4,000. But the journey's not over. And we haven't had the dollar crisis yet. We haven't had a collapse in the treasury bond market. We haven't had the dollar collapse on foreign exchange markets relative to other currencies. So a lot of things are going to happen before I take that final victory lap and basically say, I told you so.
So my question is...
But I'm pretty sure all this stuff is going to happen, including the collapse of Bitcoin. That's another thing that is going to happen. And Bitcoin may even collapse before the dollar, and before the bomb, because Bitcoin could collapse at any moment. I mean, the only thing Bitcoin really has going for it now is the Trump administration. That's really what's propping it up.
Well, look, Bitcoin has a lot of things going for it, but what I want to ask you again, just to kind of close on this doom hyperinflation thesis, it's like, let's just put gold in a vacuum, and it's like, if you are right and you do get that final victory lap and it plays out the way that you see it playing out, my question for you is like, at what cost? Like, what does society look like? What does the economy look like if you do hit hit gold to 10K, you do hit gold to $15,000-$20,000? Like, how do you prepare for something like this? Like, are you advising people to just exclusively buy gold? Are you suggesting to diversify into other things? Like, if you can't hold dollars, what do people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for people of my age, the people that have a substantial portfolio, no, I tell them to have some money in gold, 5, 10%, 20%, maybe tops, have money in gold. But I like stocks. I like dividend producing stocks. Actually own a lot of gold stocks too. But I own a lot of non-gold stocks all around the world that I think will deliver real inflation adjusted returns and will be, very helpful to Americans, to maintain their standard of living in a major dollar devaluation, which is coming. But for a lot of young people who, don't have, a lot of savings yet to invest, but they want to do something, I recommend that they buy some physical gold, or probably silver is probably easier for a lot of people to have who maybe have $5,000 or $10,000. Just buy some silver, buy some, physical silver coins to hold value. I also tell people to, don't go grocery shopping, every week for stuff, stock up if you've got space, buy things now that don't perish and that you're going to need in 6 months, in a year or 2 years. Just buy them now, because they're going to be a lot more expensive in the future. So you might as well just buy them now. It's a pretty good investment. I mean, let's say toothpaste. I don't know the price of toothpaste, but let's say toothpaste is $5 for a tube, and in a year it's $10. Just buy it now. When you use it a year from now, you've got 100% return on your toothpaste investment, right? Because you're going to use the toothpaste eventually. So why not buy it? Because why keep your money in the bank and then buy the toothpaste when it's twice the price? But the other problem, I think, is that when the dollar really starts to collapse and prices really start to rise, the government may implement price controls as a way to try to stop it from happening, right? Just the way Nixon did. And when that happens, you end up with shortages, because if it's illegal to charge the correct price, then the merchants just don't sell the merchandise at all. So if they put price controls, let's say on toothpaste, well, then you go to the drugstore, the supermarket, and there's no toothpaste on the shelves, right? Because they can't sell it at a price low enough to comply with the law. So now it's not a question of toothpaste being more expensive. You can't even get it. Now, of course, there might be a guy in an alley somewhere who's selling toothpaste on the black market. And now it's even more expensive because the guy risks going to jail for selling you illegal toothpaste. But now, how are you going to buy that toothpaste? Well, maybe he'll take a silver dime, right? If you have some, because then, he's not going to take a credit card, because, then the government will know what he's doing. He's breaking the law. And who knows what the jail time will be for violating these price controls. So it's good to stock up on stuff so you don't have to go to the black market. Have it now. So, remember during COVID, people were having a hard time getting toilet paper, and other things, because there were supply shortages during COVID. They'll be worse if we have price controls. But even if we don't have price controls, prices are going way up because the dollar is going way down. So you're going to need a lot more dollars to buy things. But if you have silver, prices will come down in terms of silver. You won't need, you'll be able to buy more stuff with less silver. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, that's going to be the case with Bitcoin, right? The prices are going to come down in Bitcoin because obviously prices have come down in Bitcoin since Bitcoin first came on the scene. Prices have come way down. But I think Bitcoin is going to fall even in terms of dollars. So I think that if you're relying on Bitcoin to buy stuff, you're going to need even more Bitcoin, because I think prices will rise even more in Bitcoin than they will in dollars.
I actually think you don't realize your toothpaste prediction was one of the greatest crypto shills I've ever heard in my time doing this. Here's a question for you, Peter. Is I actually gained a lot of respect for you in the last couple of days watching some of your old stuff.
Because you didn't respect me until 2 days ago?
Here's the thing, Peter. I did not respect you, but the crypto community kind of knows you at the angry guy that yells at the sky, right? That's how you're sort of known amongst the Bitcoiners. And not that I am a Bitcoiner, I'm more of a crypto enthusiast. But, there's this clip that's kind of drilled in my brain, embedded in my brain, and I think it was 2006. You're on Fox News, and you are predicting this financial crisis that's coming. And I mean, brother, they were audibly laughing in your face. They're like out loud on the air. They're laughing at you, and it's the anchor, it's the host, it's all the guests.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming on mainstream.
This is my question.
And nobody saw it at the Fed either. Or,
my question is how and why was everybody so oblivious to what was coming in 2008? Like, how is that possible that everybody was like they were? I mean, smart people, very talented people were like, how is that possible?
Well, I mean, it's group think. I mean, that is the dynamic. Everybody kind of thinks the same way, and they really are oblivious to anything that contradicts what they believe. I would talk about cognitive dissonance, where they kind of build a mental wall, and nothing I say could get through because it would be such a disruptive to their worldview and to their way of life and their livelihood. Nobody wanted to accept what I was saying was true. And since nobody else was saying it, it was like, well, and how could it be true? How could this one guy, from this small little firm be right? And, all these big Harvard economists and, the Federal Reserve and the big Wall Street banks and the Council of Economic Advice. How could all these guys be wrong? And this guy Schiff, obviously, he can't be right? They didn't want to admit that. But just to bring it back, but to Bitcoin, but I see the same type of mental cognitive dissonance in the Bitcoin community, where everybody is so wedded to their belief system in Bitcoin, and they've kind of committed, they're all in on it, and they really are not open to hearing anything that's critical. It all bounces off. There's no, so nothing that I say, nothing that I can argue to try to explain this gets through. It's all, no, I'm a boomer, I'm a dinosaur. I just don't get it. I don't know that, they built up these defense mechanisms. And so when I tell them, hey, Bitcoin's going to crash, they laugh that off, just like people said, well, they laughed off the coming financial crisis when I said, banks are going to fail or Fannie and Freddie are going to go bankrupt. And I was like, no, that can't happen. I'm like, well, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, to be fair, you were saying it in 2006. It happened in 2 years versus the Bitcoin thing we've been talking about. I mean, you've been talking about anti-Bitcoin for a decade plus. So
yeah, I was warning. I was warning about the financial crisis before 2006. I started warning about it probably in 2002, 2003. So I knew what the Fed was doing with the low interest rates. I saw the problems in the housing market, in the mortgage market really early, right? I got more vocal then, and I got more media coverage then. So people focus on the fact that I was saying this stuff in 2006 and then it's, 2007, but I had been talking about it years before. But yes, the Bitcoin bubble has gone on for much longer than the housing bubble did. And so yes, I mean, I've been critical of Bitcoin for longer than I was critical of mortgages and housing. And so because this bubble has gotten so big, a lot of people then believe, well, you must be wrong this time because look, the bubble should have popped a long time ago. And look, I think it was very close. I think that the Bitcoin community did a great job of suckering in Wall Street. And I think when Wall Street came in with the ETFs, that helped extend it. MicroStrategy, and with the help of Wall Street, the financings and all the leverage, Michael, he was able to pump it. And then they did a great job of, getting Trump, buying Trump, getting Trump and his family indoctrinated and all in on crypto and getting them elected and, having a crypto czar and a big, getting the whole power of the presidency behind this pump and dump, this, pyramid. Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot to try to extend it. but they're going to run out. I mean, they cannot do it in perpetuity. Eventually, it has to implode. That's the dynamic. It's you can't get around. It's a greater fool theory. It's Bitcoin itself has no intrinsic value, so its only value is as a speculative investment. But you need speculators. You need people who want to buy it, and they can only get out if more people come in. And so you need an ever increasing supply of people willing to pay a higher price than the person who they bought it from. And eventually the dynamic just falls apart. There aren't enough new buyers to keep the thing from imploding. But that's part of the whole mantra of never sell your Bitcoin, hodl, right? All of this was created by the people who want to sell, but they don't want anybody else to sell because they don't want the competition and they need new buyers. So buy your Bitcoin and never sell is what they tell you. That's part of the religion of it. Meanwhile, the people who thought all that stuff up, they're the ones that are selling, right? But they have to make sure that other people don't. And they have to get more buyers to come in because that's the only way they can get out. But eventually the whole thing implodes. And, it may be happening already. And I don't know if you look at some of these crypto stocks, a lot of them are all blowing up. I mean, I pointed out today, look at the Winklevoss company, Gemini, just came out last month. It's already down about 60% from the high from the day it traded. Look at Donald Trump's company, Donald Trump Media, is down 70% from October. They reinvented themselves as a Bitcoin treasury company, and they keep getting, new 52-week lows today. Look what happened to David Bailey's company. I went to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. And I remember when they launched this Nakamoto Bitcoin thing.
He came on the stream.
I was telling people this is nuts. This is a pyramid on a Ponzi. The stock was like $30 when it came out. It's like 70 cents.
Okay, let me ask you a question though.
Out in that stock.
Let me ask you a question. Do you recognize the irony of how often in this decade you have to say the word Bitcoin on your shows and in your posts?
No, I mean, look, Bitcoin is still there, right? It's still there. It's got a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. Look at how they've bought off the financial media. You can't watch CNBC. I mean, the whole.
What do you mean bought off? Who bought off?
No, I mean they paid. You go to CNBC, it's all crypto. I mean, I said they should call CNBC Crypto News Bitcoin. I mean, that's.
But to be fair, it's been the best performing asset of the decade. So they have a financial responsibility to their audience to talk about it. Right?
No, I think their audience is going to be suing them when they lose all their money. But they buy all the commercial time. All these things are sponsored by Bitcoin, sponsored by crypto. Yet they hardly let anybody say anything negative about Bitcoin.
You're on there every day, Peter. You're on CNBC once a week.
I'm never on CNBC.
You're on once a week.
I've been on in like 10 years. No. They stopped inviting me on because I was negative on Bitcoin.
Well, look, I'm here to invite you on. What
probably happened is the Bitcoin sponsor says, look, we'll give you a lot of money. Just don't let Peter Schiff come on the air because we can't have him telling the truth about Bitcoin. We're trying to get your audience to buy it.
You actually don't realize it, but the Bitcoiners want Peter Schiff on the air because it makes them feel more sound about their investment. But here, okay, look, I know we're coming up shortly. Here's sort of one more thing I want to ask you. Is you predicted 2008. 2008 happened. I want to know, how did you trade 2008, and are there parallels you think we can draw?
So I actually got killed in 2008. Right?
Really?
So the trade that I made that made money was the subprime short, but that was in 2007. That paid off in 2007. But the rest of my portfolio, I had a lot of gold stocks, just like I do now, right? I had a lot of foreign stocks. They all went down. The stocks that I owned went down more in 2008 than the U.S. stock market.
Whoa.
Now, they rebounded more in 2009. So I made back a lot of what I lost in 2008 on my stock portfolio, not counting what I made, on the short side of the mortgage market. That was a totally different trade.
Okay.
But what I was prepared for was the dollar crisis that I thought would follow the financial crisis. See, back then, like if you go and look at my first book that I wrote, which was Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse, I thought that after we got the financial crisis and the mortgage market collapsed, real estate collapsed, banks failed, Fannie and Freddie failed, the government would print a bunch of money, which they did. And they called it quantitative easing. I didn't know what they were going to call it. I just knew what they were going to do. And I thought that all that money printing would end up causing a crisis in the dollar and the bond market and gold to go way up. That's what I thought would happen. That's what I got wrong on the timing. It didn't happen. It started to happen. Gold got to 1900, but then it fell off. The dollar started to fall, but then it rallied, right? And we were able to inflate an even bigger bubble than the one that popped in 2008. In fact, I've called it the everything bubble. We have a massive bubble in stocks and real estate and bonds and crypto. The Fed was able to engineer this and kick the can down the road for a lot longer than I thought. But when I wrote my most recent book, which is still 12 years old, The Real Crash, How to Profit America's Coming Bankruptcy, the purpose of The Real Crash was to tell people that the financial crisis crash was not the crash that I was worried about. I warned about it, but it wasn't the real crash. The real crash was what I thought was coming in the dollar and in the bond market, which still hasn't happened. Now, I think it's going to happen. I think we're very close. I think now that gold is really shooting up again, that is a pretty good warning sign. Like when the subprime market blew up in 2007, that told me that I was right about the financial crisis, and then it hit in 2008. But I was warning about the subprime blow up years before it blew up. But when it did, everybody shrugged it off that didn't know what it signified. The Fed said, don't worry about it. It's contained, right? I knew it wasn't contained. And just like people are now blowing off gold and, it's not, now it's acting like a meme stock and it's momentum. And, they don't understand why gold is going up and what it means and what it portends. But I think it's telling me that I'm right, that the world is losing confidence in the dollar, and the dollar crisis that I thought should have happened years and years ago is now close at hand. And so, people need to, actually read that book, and everything that I wrote is going to be happening. It's just happening later than I thought it was going to happen.
Peter, I'm going to buy your book. Guaranteed I'm going to buy your book. You say we're in an everything bubble. Do you think gold has entered bubble territory?
No. I mean, I don't think gold is a bubble. Now, obviously, it had a pretty big move recently where it ran from, 3,500, 3,600 up to 4,400 very quickly, especially that last $300 or $400. And then, it sold off very quickly. It had an abrupt decline. In fact, yesterday, or not yesterday, but on Tuesday, it had a 6.5% drop. That was yesterday. That was a huge drop. But it's not even close to a bubble. I mean, I can tell you, I mentioned my gold company, Schiff Gold. Business has been slow. It picked up a bit last couple of weeks, but over the last few years, as gold went from 2,000 to 4,000, we weren't selling that much gold. I mean, my best year at Schiff Gold was 2020, right? People during COVID, people actually got worried.
How much gold did you
sell?
sell?
And bought gold. Huh?
How much gold did you sell in 2020?
I don't remember the dollar amount, but it was the best year that we had. And people were just people wanted gold, right? They were worried. But for the last couple of years, people haven't been worried. I mean, they haven't been buying gold. I mean, they've been buying Bitcoin, right? Or they've been buying, tech stocks. So the main buyers have been central banks. And it's not a bubble when the central banks are diversifying out of dollars into gold. These are not speculative buyers, and they're not even intending to sell. They're buying gold to hold it as a reserve. So it's not even about the price for them. They just need something to back up their currency. and they no longer have confidence in the dollar, and so they're replacing their dollars with gold. The public has been really absent. And then not just the general public, but professional investors. I think if you look through all of the investment landscape in public, pensions, endowments, hedge funds, pension funds, I think it's something like 2% of all the investable assets are invested in gold and gold-related equities. So that would include physical gold, gold mining stocks, stuff like that. That is very low. I mean, based on a historic average. I mean, if this was a bubble, right, it'd be much greater than that. If it was a bubble, the man on the street would be buying gold, but they're not.
They were lining up. There was a line out front. I saw these pictures on Twitter. I know you saw it. They're lined around the fucking block buying it, 8% premium.
I don't know like where that footage came from, if it was real. I mean, if they were actually lining up to buy gold. I have no idea. Maybe they were lining up to sell their gold. I mean, that's what I've heard from a lot of, smaller dealers, that a lot of people are coming in to sell their old jewelry and get money. And in fact, we had a lot of people on the way up as gold was going up, customers that had bought gold from us in the past. Remember, I've been selling gold to people since it was under $300 and silver was $4, right? So there are a lot of people that bought gold and silver that's a lot higher. And some people have been cashing out. Right, the opposite of a mania, people are selling into the strength. In fact, all last year, and for the a good part of this year, the gold ETF had net outflows. The gold stock ETFs had net outflows. So the public was selling gold the whole way up, and the people who own gold are afraid. Like if you look at the gold stock investors, they've been selling out every time gold goes down a little bit. They panic and get out. So even the people that are investing in the space got one foot out the door, most of them. They don't have a lot of conviction. So there's a lot more fear in the gold trade than there is greed. Where I see nothing but greed is in the Bitcoin. I mean, the Bitcoiners feel they can't lose. There's like no way Bitcoin's going to 1 million. Bitcoin's going to 10 million. It's impossible that it doesn't happen. Like Michael Saylor, mortgage your house, sell your business, put everything you own in Bitcoin because it's a sure thing. You can't lose. It's going to 1 million. It's going to 10 million. And a lot of people have the attitude of there's no way I can lose on Bitcoin, right? I mean, if you don't own Bitcoin, you're going to have fun staying poor. But if you own Bitcoin, we're going to be rich. You don't have that attitude. No, in the goal.
You kind of do. You kind of do. You kind of do. But okay, here's my last question for you, Peter, because I think it's a good one to wrap on. I'll let you go. Is do you think that anything positive has come out of the blockchain industry? Do you like stable coins? Do you like smart contracts? I have a poly market sign in the prediction or in the background, on-chain prediction markets. Like, do you think anything positive, any positive applications, stable coins, anything have come out of blockchain?
Well, look, a couple of years ago, I launched with a buddy of mine a NFT,
an ordinal,
an ordinal on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Oh, I know about it.
And we did sell, but they actually came with a print of the actual, and I signed it. And the print, so when you bought the ordinal, you got a signed Peter Schiff original piece of art by this guy Market Price, who has a pretty good art following, in his own right. The original oil painting, no one ever bought that one. We still have that one. That one we were trying to sell for more money and nobody bought it. So we still have the original. But all of the prints got sold. And the prints had an ordinal, but I called it Golden Triumph. And so there's still, people are reselling them on Magic Eden. But I think that the whole thing pretty much fizzled out. I never really believed in the whole NFT craze anyway. I kind of was making fun of it with Golden Triumph because it was just an arm holding up a gold bar, right? Which was like in your face, Bitcoin, like gold is going to triumph over Bitcoin. But I did that. I mean, I don't know if you want to say that, but other than that, nothing has really happened. I mean, I remember, 10 years ago, people telling me how blockchain was going to change everything. And so far it hasn't changed anything. I mean, yes, some people have gotten rich hyping it up. But as far as my life, do I do anything with the blockchain? No. Is my car title on a blockchain? No. title to my house? No. Am I trading stocks? No, none of that.
To be
is actually
fair, there's a
happening.
couple examples. I mean, Polymarket predicted the election early. That
Well, but Polymarket isn't on the blockchain either.
Yes, it
That's
is.
just on the internet.
Well,
No,
it
but
is.
I'm saying I don't need blockchain. I can go on
Well, you can
Polymarket.
access it via the internet the same way you
Right,
access anything online.
Right, but I mean, the internet, when the internet first came on the scene, it changed my life immediately. Even though I didn't buy any of the .com stocks, I thought that was a bubble too. But I used the internet. It affected my life. I mean, I didn't buy a stock in some of these companies, but I used their website and I bought their products. So the internet affected me, and I, you know, Bitcoin blockchain hasn't affected me at all, other than the fact that, yeah, I'm constantly talking about it because I'm arguing that it's a bubble.
You love talking
But as
about
far
it.
but as far as just criticizing it,
Uh-huh.
right? I don't use it for anything. Now, like one thing, ironically, this is kind of ironic, and I don't even know that blockchain is even the best way to do it. But ironically, the best asset to tokenize is gold. And, you know, it's funny because when I do these debates with people about why gold is no good, they say, well, what if you want to get a cup of coffee with gold? What are you going to shave off a little scrape from your bar? And then how are you going to have it assayed? Or how are you going to buy something? I said, well, the world was on a gold standard for thousands of years. They had no problem when they had a lot less technology than we did. They had no problem buying and selling stuff with gold, right? It was easy. But today, it's easier than ever because you can have gold stored with any facility and they can tokenize it, and you can leave your gold with that custodian, and you can carry in your wallet tokens that represent ownership of that gold. And now you can transfer ownership through a blockchain instantly,
verifiably, provably,
low cost.
no cost.
Right. Just like, I mean, people talk about stable coins. Wait, what? The state like USDT or Tether, they're stable coins that are attached to the dollar. Right. Well, there's no stability in the dollar, so it's kind of like an oxymoron. It's not a stable coin. It's a depreciating coin. If you have a US dollar stable coin, you're guaranteed to lose value the longer you hold it.
Fair.
And you don't even get the interest. The interest on the treasuries that the stable coin creators issue, they keep it. They don't even share it with the people that own the token. So it's the worst way to own dollars. It's a non-interest bearing token of a depreciating currency. So you might as well just have tokenized gold and have something that's stable to the price of gold, because that's real stability, because gold will maintain its purchasing power. So ideally, the one thing that makes sense to put on a blockchain is gold, because it will work and it will do all the things that Bitcoin promises but can never do. You can use tokenized gold as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, as a store of value. And I probably will. Look, I mean, I'm probably going to launch my own token at some point. I'm building out a platform on Schiff Gold right now that people will be able to buy gold. In fact, they'll be able to buy. I don't want to start promoting it yet because I'm trying to get it all
Give
up and running.
Give a quick rundown.
No, but so you can buy gold at Schiff Gold, right? On an app on your phone. We won't send you the actual gold. The gold will be stored in a vault that you own and you have it, and you'll be able to transfer ownership of that gold to other people, through the app. And you could use it, as a medium of exchange. You can pay or be paid in gold
instantly.
And you can redeem it in physical gold, or eventually you can redeem it in a token. I'm also going to give people a debit card where if they have $5,000 worth of gold or silver and they take that debit card and they buy something for $10, $10 worth of gold will get sold to cover the transaction, right? So you can use your gold as a basis of trade in commerce. But ideally, you won't sell the gold. You'll use the gold to make the payment because the counterparty will want to get paid in gold. He'd say, yes, I'm going to sell you this product. I'm going to provide this service. Pay me in gold. And then you can transfer the quantity of gold, instantly at very low cost, much cheaper, much quicker than you can transfer Bitcoin. I mean, whenever I talk about tokenized gold and, a cryptocurrency backed by gold, the Bitcoin community always says, well, that's no good because, you have to have a counterparty, right? You have to have counterparty risk. Well, I mean, yeah, so what? I mean, we've had counterparty risk for thousands of years. There's a company, have you heard of Brinks?
Yeah, I know Brinks is.
So Brinks has been around for like 160 something years. And they're in the business of storing gold. So they're a counterparty. They store your gold. They have never lost an ounce in 160 years. Nobody has lost any gold who's entrusted it to Brinks. And so in free markets, companies compete for, branding and, credibility with the marketplace. And the reason that Brinks is trusted is because nobody's ever lost any money with them. And so they want to maintain that brand value. And, capitalism is all about counterparties. If you have health insurance, if you have auto insurance, fire insurance, it's only as good as the counterparty. You've bought a policy and you rely on a counterparty to pay the claim when you submit it. So counterparties are a part of capitalism. It's not like because a counterparty is required, it doesn't work. It works beautifully. So you can't just say, well, gold doesn't work because I need somebody to store it.
Wait, Peter, before we get lost, I'm dying. Yeah. Your company you're launching is a blockchain company. You just explained why DeFi is important and what an RWA is. That's what you're building, right? You explained to me why DeFi matters and is cool, why blockchain tech works and an RWA, real world asset.
Well, it's not
tokenized on the blockchain.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, it doesn't have to be on a blockchain. You can do it without a blockchain. But yeah, it works with a blockchain. I don't know what is the best way of doing it. But what doesn't have any value are the tokens themselves, like Bitcoin. I mean,
yeah, but forget Bitcoin. We're talking about digital tokenized gold on the blockchain, a real world asset.
If you do that, but the value Bitcoin. Of it is it's gold. You're just making it easier for people to transact in gold.
Correct.
And yeah, I mean, so that could work, right?
That's awesome.
The reason I said it's ironic is that the one thing that works best on blockchain is the one thing that Bitcoin people thought Bitcoin would replace.
Yeah, but forget Bitcoin. It's like dollars are still dollars, but they work better on chain. Stablecoins are more efficient, cheaper, merchant fees are down, faster, you can move more money.
Well, I don't even know about that. I mean, I transfer cash, whether it's through Zelle or through Venmo or through PayPal. It's instant and doesn't cost me anything.
But if you wanted to send me $1 million right now on a Sunday, how would you do it? Not easy.
Oh yeah. Those apps won't allow payments that large.
No. I could send you $1 million right now for a penny, less than a penny on Phantom Wallet on Solana, and it would hit your account in a second.
I'm happy to receive it.
Vice versa. Peter, this was awesome. Look, we just found common ground.
You're gonna send me $1 million.
Peter, can you just take a moment? This is awesome. We just found common ground. You just pitched a blockchain
but I don't know.
DeFi product to me, and I like it. I love it. I'm into it. You should come back and launch it on the stream. I mean, we found common ground, and you might not like Bitcoin, but you understand blockchain.
Yeah, well, it will work with gold, but right now the thing that people need to do is first you buy the gold, and now you have that stored, and now you can use it in commerce. But I think when there's going to be more demand for tokenized gold is going to be when inflation in the developed economies really accelerates. And it's going to become difficult to deal in fiat currencies that are losing value so rapidly. And it's going to be hard to price products in a currency that loses value so rapidly. So I think more people will choose to move out of fiat into a real money. And people will put themselves on a gold standard. So they don't have to wait for the government to officially do it. People can, live on a gold standard by using it. Because you could use gold as money as efficiently, I think, as you can use any fiat currency. I mean, if ultimately my accounts, I want to have people be able to do, e-checks versus their gold account, have a debit card on it. Be able to, transfer it peer to peer. So yeah, you could, you carry all your gold around in your cell phone or, on a debit card, however you want to have it. And, you can transact into tiny bits. I mean, you could pay for a cup of coffee. Ironically, you can't buy coffee with Bitcoin because it's
Bitcoin.
Too expensive. Right. But you can do it with tokenized gold. But I think all these other tokens, like Ethereum or all the other Solana, I don't see the value in these tokens. Even if there's some value in the network, I don't see all the value in the tokens. I think that's all speculation. That's all hype. And most of the buying or the use case, all the use is just gambling. People are buying the tokens.
Speculation's a preferred
term.
Well,
yeah, speculating, gambling, whatever.
You speculate on gold, but continue.
No, I'm not speculating
on
gold.
You're speculating. You are.
Well, I'm not a jeweler. I don't actually need gold in my business, but yeah, I hold it. But I don't.
Because you're speculating on the price to go up.
I'm speculating on gold mining stocks. I think gold is more of a safe haven store of value. But yeah, I would agree that I have a lot of mining stocks, and I think that is a speculation. But I think it's a very well reasoned speculation that I think has been paying off, and it will pay off even greater. But I look at gold as just money, right? It's as opposed to anything else. But when they talk about all of the new adoption of Bitcoin, nobody's adopting it. People are just gambling on it. People are buying it because they're told they're going to get rich if they just buy it. And if they don't buy it, they're being told they're going to be poor. So it's both fear and greed, right? You're greedy in that you want to get rich, but you're fearful that if you don't buy it, you're going to be poor, right? So there's a lot of pressure on people to just buy this thing. And the pressure is coming from the people who already own it, who need to recruit new suckers to keep the thing going.
So
so I don't see a lot of real uses for it at all. I mean, it's you don't go into stores and you see a lot of signs about Bitcoin or pay with Bitcoin or we take your Bitcoin. No, I mean, it's even rare at a Bitcoin conference that you could use your Bitcoin.
So I'm not going to show you altcoins, but when you do eventually launch this DeFi company on a blockchain, because the tokens can be self-custodied and it's permissionless and it's on a ledger, you're going to launch it on top of a chain. And now most altcoins, I think we could agree, don't have a ton of value, but whatever chain you launch it on, whether it's Ether, Solana, there's a token that gets paid to the validators to secure the network.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the token, I'd like it to be able to be chain agnostic. I'd like people to be able to, move the token on whatever chain they prefer, and I'd like it to be able to go across chains. But yes, obviously you got to pay the gas. I mean, if you want to, take your token, I mean, obviously you can also go to an exchange and you can trade it if I get it listed on an exchange.
Correct.
But if you just want to send your tokenized gold to somebody else's wallet, then you're going to have some of that token to cover the fee. But if you just want to send it to another Schiff Gold customer and you don't need, not on the chain, just my wallet, you won't have to do that. But yeah, if you just withdraw your token and put it on some wallet and I have no idea, that you own it anymore or what's going on, and then you want to send it to somebody and you want to send it on Solana, yeah, you're going to have whatever it costs to make the transfer. But I don't think it's a lot. I think
free.
And other tokens, there are a lot of other tokens that it's relatively cheap. And of course, they can keep coming up with new ones. And that may be even cheaper and faster than the ones that are there today.
I mean, you're launching a DeFi. By the way, I would love to. We could maybe talk about it offline.
We'll come back on.
Offer some insights. You'll come
ready
back
to go. We'll talk about it. And there are other companies that already have gold tokens. I mean, Tether's had Tether Gold for a long time, right? I was surprised they didn't own, because I have the URL T Gold. I've always thought Tether might have had that, but I got that a long time ago for my tokenized gold.
That's a good one.
I just haven't tokenized it yet. But right now, if you go to tgold.com, it just takes you to Schiff Gold.
I was on Schiff Gold earlier. Peter, here's my last question for you. I'll let you go. And by the way, I love that we found some common ground. It's honestly good to hear from you, man. My big final question for you is off the topic of gold and Bitcoin. What do you think is the future for financial media? I come on here. I do a live stream every single day. We talk on chain, crypto, prediction markets, emerging markets. You have your massive YouTube channel, 700, 800 million subscribers. You're on Fox, CNBC every day. It feels like there's a little
I'm never on CNBC. I'm never on CNBC.
You're on Fox.
I'm on Fox occasion, Fox News occasion, Fox Business occasionally.
And it feels like there's a separation between what's happening with sort of the Zoomers, the younger classes, and then what's happening over on Fox Business. I mean, you were being interviewed the other day, and I don't think the host realized you could buy $1 of gold instead of just $4,100 an entire ounce, which was interesting to hear. What do you think is the future for this financial media stuff? What
well,
I'm
look,
doing,
I
what
think
you're
the
doing?
financial media, I think they're going to lose a lot of credibility with their audience because I don't think they're getting quality information. I think that the financial news has mainly been captured by their advertisers and by their guests. And so they're very much pushing the mainstream narrative to the exclusion of any kind of counter perspectives. I mean, when they used to have me on quite a bit, they at least allowed a contrarian view on their air. Even if they laughed at me and made fun of me, at least they allowed me to make my say my piece. They don't even allow that anymore, right? So if you're not going to, toe the conventional line, you're not going to get an invitation to come on. And so I think they're doing a disservice to their audience. I mean, look at, keeping people out of gold has been a big mistake, because it's done better than the stock market. But, and foreign stocks this year, are crushing U.S. stocks, but you wouldn't really know that if you just look at the mainstream media. I have a dividend payers fund, foreign dividend payer fund. It's up about 50% this year. The U.S. stock market's up about a quarter of that. So the returns are now much, much better abroad, but you don't get that information from the mainstream. So I think this next dollar crisis, debt crisis, is going to really hurt the mainstream financial media quite a bit. And I think it's going to help independent voices that have, their own channels. The problem with my YouTube channel is I've been suppressed for years.
I heard this. What happened?
Well, I don't know. They labeled me misinformation. So when I do a video, it doesn't really show up in search that much, and it never gets recommended. So pretty much, like, I have about 600,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel, and almost all my videos are watched by my existing subscribers. I get very few people who are not subscribers listening because they don't know about it. They don't find it.
You should try a Bitcoin video and Bitcoin in the title and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I started putting some videos on the Schiff Gold YouTube channel, which has never been shadow banned. Like, I did a video yesterday, and it's got, maybe close to 100,000 views in a day. It had, last I looked, it was like 80 something thousand in 12 hours. So that channel with only 30,000 subscribers is getting as many views or more than my regular videos on my main channel with 600,000. And when I looked at it, I saw that something like 65% of the views came from people who found it on search. Whoa. Whereas on my main channel, it's like 11% people find it on search. So my main channel is being suppressed. My little channel that's new is not. And so that's, I'm getting 100,000 views when I have 30,000 subscribers. Whereas on my main channel, I get 100,000 views off of 600,000 subscribers, right? So, but I think that people who are independent, and I'm not the only guy out there, and I'm not the only guy that's saying stuff that's similar. There are other guys out there. And I think that more people are going to start looking to independent, sources for financial advice, and not look at the mainstream media, because they're realizing they're not getting the whole picture. They're just getting what the advertisers want the viewers to hear, right? And of course, all the big guests. I mean, these networks, they need to have people to come on from the administration. They need to have the big guests on that manage a lot of money. And so to appeal to those people, they have to, promote whatever it is they're promoting, and so that's what they end up doing. And who knows, a lot of people end up using their air, to pump up what they're trying to sell, and that's especially the case with crypto.
Who would do that, Mr. Schiff? Who would use it for that? Look, man, maybe I'm biased, but I think this is one of your better interviews I've heard. Thanks for coming. Hey, last thing.
What is that? What is that? What is that? Is that a penguin over there that's lying on its back? What is
That
that
is a
thing?
pudgy penguin. That is Phantom Wallet, and that is Polymarket.
Do they sponsor you?
They do sponsor me, yes. The Penguin's
All
free
right.
promo because Luca Nets is the homie, but Polymarket and Phantom only sponsors of the show.
All right.
Polymarket was actually announced last Friday. Also, follow me back on Twitter. You should. Not ThreadGuy. It's easy to find. 2T's.
Here's the thing, though.
Follow me back on Twitter.
The reason I don't follow crypto guys, and I have some crypto guys that I kind of like to follow, but the thing is, I don't want it to seem like I'm endorsing the crypto by following a crypto promoter. So that's my thing. It's like, I kind of feel like it would almost be like saying, yeah, buy crypto because I'm following somebody. So I don't want to send those mixed signals. And that's why I have resisted following people that are, Bitcoin advocates, Bitcoin promoters, even though some of them follow me. And I kind of feel like, hey, maybe I should follow back. I don't follow a lot of people. I only have about 300 people that I follow. And I don't, so what I'm basically saying when I follow somebody is I recommend what this person is saying. I kind of, to me, it's an endorsement. When I follow somebody, I'm endorsing. So if I follow an economist, yeah, I'm endorsing their economic thinking. I like what they have to say. I think it's worthwhile. And even though there are crypto people that say some things that I agree with, but I don't want to endorse them knowing that they're now telling people to buy something I don't believe that they should buy. So that's why I have a problem. And, when I went, I talked about, the Bitcoin conference, when I went to the Bitcoin conference and, was quite impressed by, the size of the conference and how many people were there. But I was probably the most popular person there. And, oh yeah, my booth was crowded and everybody was coming up to me.
Sailor was there though, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. And Sailor mentioned my name twice.
How many times did you mention him on this stream?
No.
How many times did you mention him?
The only name that he mentioned in his talk when he was telling people to mortgage their life and buy Bitcoin was Peter. And he didn't even call me by my last name. He just called me Peter because everybody knew.
Pete or Peter?
Everybody knew who he was talking about. Peter, right? He called me Peter.
And you call him Sailor.
But I didn't, I probably never posed for so many selfies, not just at the venue, but just walking through the hotels. I mean, everybody wanted a picture of me. And so I was very popular. And the reason, and people would come up and they would tell me this, and these are probably more of the hardcore Bitcoiners because they're at the Bitcoin conference, right? And they're saying, Peter, you're the reason I own Bitcoin. That was the most common conversation. I own Bitcoin because of you. I own Bitcoin because of you. Even though I never recommended it, even though I discouraged it, people bought it anyway. And the reason that they did is they said, you're the guy that taught me about economics. I read your stuff. I followed you. You taught me about inflation and central banks, and you taught me about gold. And then I just went from gold to Bitcoin, right? So I got them almost to Bitcoin, and then they just got to Bitcoin. But if it wasn't for me, they never would have got close enough to the point where they went for Bitcoin. So everybody said, and then when I went to David Bailey and I said, David, everyone I'm talking to here is saying I'm the reason they own Bitcoin. And he said, I know, you're the reason I own Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know how much of this I started, but, and a lot of the people that I see promoting Bitcoin, I hear them saying all the things that I've been saying about gold. They just take my lines.
By the way, that's the irony. That's the irony of the whole thing is you are Max. You just don't even know it. One day we'll get there, Peter.
Yeah. So you're, there are a lot of people in the Bitcoin community who know me. And the thing about it was, I mean, people thought, oh, am I going to get heckled? Am I going to get received? Like, what the hell is Peter Schiff doing here? No, everybody loved having me there. They were glad I was there. No, but I didn't hear an unkind word from anybody and there were 35,000 people there. You'd figure one person wanted to, tell me off, but no, nobody wanted to say, and the crypto people themselves are good people. I just think they've been misled, right? They've gone down the wrong path. But the Bitcoin guys, yeah, I mean, they're other than Bitcoin, they're my kind of people.
All right, last question, and be honest, Peter. We've established some rapport. Don't lie to me. Yeah. Do not lie to me. Do you still hold the Bitcoin from the ordinal sale, and do you have any Bitcoin, $1 of Bitcoin anywhere?
Okay, so I did not keep any of the Bitcoin from the ordinal sale, so no.
Second part, do you have any anywhere?
Yes, because, well, I have a wallet that I have no way of accessing that has about 1/3 of a Bitcoin in it. I haven't had access to that wallet in years, and so so that's that, right? So that doesn't really count. Then I established a Bitcoin strategic reserve kind of as a joke because Trump established a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and I gave out my address. In fact, I initially had I set up a Coinbase account, and I used that address, and then people couldn't really see it because it was, so I set up a hard wallet. I bought one of these wallets. I forget the name of it.
Ledger?
But, Tezos?
Treasure.
Yeah, So I bought one of those, and I moved the Bitcoin that was in my strategic reserve onto that platform. So I have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and I have a crypto stockpile, right? Just like the U.S. government. And just like the U.S. government, I have not used any of my own money to acquire my stockpile or my strategic reserve. I invited people to donate. I mean, I could probably dig up my address and you can put it on if anybody wants to.
We're not donating. You don't need it, bro. Gold's 4K. We're not donating.
But I have made a pledge to never actually use any of it. It's like, so when I looked at it, I haven't looked at it in a while. I had maybe, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 worth of Bitcoin in my strategic reserve, something like that. And I had maybe, I don't know, a few hundred, $500 worth of a few other altcoins, mostly Solano. I got mainly Solano in my.
You didn't do that on purpose. The Solano thing.
Crypto stockpile.
Is that on purpose?
But that's what people donated.
Peter, is that on purpose? The Solano thing.
I didn't buy it, huh?
The Solano thing. Are you doing that on purpose?
Doing what on purpose?
Solana with an A. The O, is it on purpose?
Oh, it's Solana. I don't know. I'm not good at pronouncing stuff.
Okay.
I got that from my dad.
Okay, I didn't mean to call you out on it then.
No.
My bad.
I'm not. Yeah, whatever. But I got some of those, whatever you call them. But so I have that. But I have never actually spent any of my own money, even the Bitcoin that I lost. Right? That was all donated to me. And the way that happened is, I think it was Anthony Pompliano said, hey, I'm going to give you $100 of Bitcoin. And I said, well, I don't have a wallet. You can't give me. And they go, oh. So I went and set up a wallet. All right, no, I had a wallet. I got this wallet. I did a Bitcoin debate with Eric Voorhees. And after the debate was over, I went out to dinner with Eric and another guy. And they set up a wallet on my phone, right? On crypto.com, whatever their wallet was that they had. They set up this wallet for me. And he transferred in like $100 worth of Bitcoin just to show me how to work. I'd never seen it, right? And then I transferred $50 back, right? So I left the restaurant with $50 worth of Bitcoin on that wallet, right? And they gave me a PIN. They never gave me the seed phrase. They never gave me the password. All I had was a PIN. And it worked for years and years and years. And so I had somebody one time wanted to, pay me for some books at a show, and he transferred me some Ether and some Bitcoin into that wallet. I had it. So I ended up having maybe a couple hundred then, worth. So then I gave that address to Pompliano to give me some Bitcoin. And he didn't give me any. But a bunch of other people just sent me Bitcoin. And I ended up with like 1/3 of a Bitcoin. But when I got it, Bitcoin was still, probably around 10,000, maybe a little less, right? So it cranked up. It was obviously worth a lot more now. But what happened is one morning I wake up and my password doesn't work, my PIN. And I can't get it in my wallet. And I like, oh, and people made fun of me because I said my wallet. They said, you forgot your password. I said, no, I remember it. My wallet forgot it. I know the PIN. I still know the PIN to this day. Huh?
Are you sure you didn't forget it?
I never knew it. All I knew was the PIN. So I contacted Eric Voorhees. I got, Eric, you set up this wallet. What's my password? They don't know. I call up the company. They can't find it. I don't have the seed phrase. I don't have the wallet. I don't have anything. All I had was a PIN. And so I was never able to recover it because what happened was the wallet company did some kind of refresh. And because they did a refresh, my PIN didn't work anymore. So I had to enter my password, which I didn't have. I only had a PIN, 4-digit PIN, like you'd have it an ATM card or something. So but all that Bitcoin got donated to me. I never bought any of it. I've never actually spent money buying any Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I didn't spend any money buying the Bitcoin that's in the strategic reserve, or I just have it.
You know what
I'm not using it. I'm just going to go down with the ship. I'm just going to hold that Bitcoin until it's worthless, just like all the other hodlers.
Okay, this is the actual last thing I'm going to say. You know what the irony of this whole thing is? It's that the Bitcoin that you got 5 years ago that you can't access has outperformed the gold you've been holding for 35 years.
Yeah, I got it more than 5. Yeah. That Bitcoin is probably about 10x from when I got it. But, gold is more than 10x from when I first started buying it. I started buying gold under 300. It's over 4,000. But yeah, had I put the money I put into like gold and gold stocks 20 years ago, had I put that money into Bitcoin, yes, I'd be a multi-billionaire, assuming I still had it all, right? But of course, I'd be dumping it, right? I couldn't. I'd have to sell it.
Peter.
But yeah, I'm surrounded by a lot of people who put a lot of money into Bitcoin, and now they're well off. I mean, pretty rich. Some of them are richer than me. Some of them aren't. But I think they're gonna lose a lot back. But a lot of them have gotten out of a good chunk of it, which is what I would recommend that people do. Look, even if you don't want to get rid of all your Bitcoin, you got to sell something. You got to take some chips off the table. You got to buy other assets, spend some of it, enjoy your winnings, convert some of it into gold and silver, buy property, buy stocks. Don't hold it all in Bitcoin and just hope it's going to 1 million or 10 million and wake up one morning and it's worthless and you've just lost it all. That's going to be a horrible feeling to have. And you can't turn back the clock. As I said earlier, at least for the young people, all right, you got a lifetime to earn it back. But if you're older, your lifetime is mainly in the past. And so you don't have the years to earn it back.
Peter, you're like our, a little bit doomer for my liking, but you are our economics unk. This was sick, dude. I hope you had a good time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Sure. Good luck with the channel and your new sponsors.
Yeah, you too, man. Hey, hit me up when it's lunchtime. Come back. You're a DeFi blockchain guy. Come back on the show in 6 months or whatever it is. If you need any advice, I'm happy to offer my self-proclaimed expertise to you. And Peter, I'm a fan. I really enjoyed it, man.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on.
All right, brother. Have a good one.